So
Yeah,
I hope we're live. There is a bit of a delay.
right.
If we're not live,
It says it's still waiting for you on YouTube.
I yes, we're live.
Yay!
Hello,
Hey, there we
everybody.
are. There we are. I see us.
Oh, good Lord. What, as I was just telling you, Francisco, I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. I don't know why I keep torturing myself. Well, we could just pre-record this. But as you said, it's way more exciting this way. And look, if there are any mishaps, it is on me. Well,
No, 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 no. This just makes it more, who needs all those fancy big bucks things? This is just grassroots relatable content, right?
absolutely. I mean, look, next year we will be competing with the Game Awards. We're coming for you,
Oh,
Jeff.
oh
Yep.
yeah.
We just need
You
a
watch
few
out.
$1 million. Anyway, hello, well, first of all, I will introduce us. Well, my name is Shorta Dunbar from the Adventure Games Podcast. Excuse me. And I am delighted to be joined by Francisco Gonzalez, who is developer. Let's see if I can get all the names right. The Ben Jordan series, which people can play for free. That's really fantastic. Then you made a Golden Wake, Shardlight, Lamplight City, and we're going to talk about Rosewater. I think is the name of the game.
That is correct. Well done. You got them all.
Thank you. So you have been developing this game for quite a while, and now apparently we're going to find out the release date because you have said that it could be out this year, 2024. 2023 came along, and then 2024, and it's almost like game development is hard, and things might happen that are unexpected. So, but
Yes.
apparently we have a
Well,
release date, which
yes.
I don't know. I don't
Right.
know yet. I've
No, you
purposely
don't.
not known. So first of all, Francisco, how are you doing?
Well, as I was telling you before we went to air, I won't go into too much detail, but this morning was a bit stressful, and some very last-minute changes had to be made. But for the purposes of movie magic, nothing has changed at all today.
It's all the same.
Everything is all exactly the same and has going according to plan. I think the only person who knows what I'm talking about in the chat is Mark Bennis, who is my composer.
Yes, hello, Mark,
Hello,
and
Mark.
thank you for retweeting.
Oh, hi, Mark. Yes,
Is
thank you.
Mark the music, which we
Mark
can
does
talk
the
about?
music, and I will be giving Mark a very special shout out before we play the trailer. Um, Yeah, I'm okay. With regards to, yeah, I've been working on this game for 6 years. It's is as of this January, it has been 6 years since I started on this game. I could blame the pandemic, but I'm not going to because the truth is that when I started off to making this game, I thought I could make a game as long as or longer than Lamplight City at double the resolution in half the time, which was incredibly naive, which is why my first teaser I said, coming 2021. And it became very obvious to me very quickly as I kept going that there's a lot of content in this game, and there's a lot of stuff I needed to test and polish. And I thought I would get it out every year the following year because a year seems like a long time, but next thing you know, it's almost the
It's
end of the
gone.
year, and is gone and you've made some progress but not enough. So yeah, there have been a couple of false starts with regards to years, but I, as of this morning, consulted with my publisher. We went over a spreadsheet. We both agreed that the targeted release date is feasible and will happen. So, barring any sort of global disaster or anything like that, which let me
Well,
keep my mouth shut because look what happened last time, and whatever. Um, it will hit this release date. So I'm very excited to announce it and finally have the end in sight because yeah, I've been working on it for a long time. And I'm excited to share it with people. I'm also terrified to share it with people because, you never know. I just hope people play it. I hope people like it. I'm vamping a little bit because, as I also told Shorsha, I've set all of my schedules and everything to go live at 3:15. So I'm gonna play the trailer on this stream at about 3:10, which is in 5 minutes. So we have a little buffer, so it goes live
Yeah, so
afterwards.
just to allow people to come in who might be a little bit late. So you'll
Yes.
get this before the general public. You'll get to
Yeah,
see
you'll get it
people there,
5 minutes
all
before the
going
general
well.
public. Yes.
All going well. And look, if things don't go well with this stream, you still get to see the trailer at 3:15.
Yes. Exactly.
But yes, so hello to everyone. Hello to Sarah, to Matt, to Capo Fudo, to Kitty Games. Hello, Kitty and Mark and Hank Works and Johnny, of course, as well. And yeah, no, it's this is. I mean, I think people will play every, at least for I mean, for me personally, it is my most anticipated game. And I'm not saying that because you're here. The reason I invited you is because I can't wait to play it. And I know in other podcasts about adventure games, it is I think number one or up there around there. I hear people talking about it, and I think for the podcast team as well. When you just talk about what game are you looking forward to 2025, Rosewater is automatically number one. And I think from what I have intentionally not played the demo since 2019, since the very early days when you show, and even then I thought. At least you have a vision and I can kind of see what you're going for. And hello, Torresno Entertainment, Legends of Castile. You can wishlist that game there as well. It's also looking great. And also to people in the chat, if you have any questions for Francisco, please put them in the chat because I want it to be interactive as well. And yeah, so if you have any questions at all for Francisco, please put them in the chat, and I'll ask him then. So. So yeah, so I suppose before we play the trailer, Francisco,
Yeah.
I'm sure people probably know, but just what is the general setup of Rosewater before 10 past? You have 3 minutes.
Sure. Sure. Well, before I say that, I also want to quickly give you a special thanks
Oh,
because
thank you.
I mean, Adventure Games Podcast and you in particular have always been very kind and very supportive. Like you asked me to be your first guest on your
First
podcast
guest,
when you first started it.
2019, and
Yeah,
but you were very kind to say yes. I did not
well,
expect you to say
but
yes.
you kindly asked me, and you've always been a champion for Rosewater. You let me come on here and announce the voice cast, and I've really appreciated just the support. So thank you very much for that. I
Yeah.
really do
Well,
appreciate it.
yeah. So
Um,
this love. Oh, get a room, you guys.
yeah, I know, right? I know, right? But
No,
no, in all
but
seriousness, I do appreciate it because the adventure game community lives and dies by word of mouth, and yeah,
absolutely,
so
and and I think since 2019, since we started the this well since I started, I didn't know what I was doing back then, and well, spoiler alert, when I asked you and a few others, Dave and the guys of the Dark Side Detective to come on the
mm,
podcast, and you all shockingly to me said yes, and I had no idea how to do a podcast, and even when I interviewed you way back then, I had no idea. I was just going with it, but when I interviewed you, I was like, yeah. I really guess I need to figure out how to do a podcast. So, but yeah, so thank you for saying those, for your kind words.
sure.
But yes, so you have two
So,
minutes.
yeah. Right. Okay. So Rosewater is a point and click adventure game, obviously, set in an alternate history Wild West. If you played Lamplight City, my previous game, it's set in the same world, which is where the United States has not declared independence. It is the Commonwealth of Vespuccia. There is a mysterious element in the air, in the ether, called ethericity that some people are interested in. I say this because it ties more into the plot of Rosewater. But in Rosewater, you play as a woman named Harley Legere, who is a former brawler turned aspiring writer. And she comes to Rosewater trying to get a job at the local newspaper, which quickly turns into having to write a puff piece about a local Western hero. And said Western hero recruits her to go on a treasure hunt, essentially. And they gather up a little posse and they go across the frontier in search of the treasure, and hijinks ensue. And the unique selling point of Rosewater is that, unlike some adventure games, um, the relationship with your companions actually matters, and the things you do, and whether it affects your relationship negatively or positively, it affects the trajectory of the story. So you might see a particular scene uh, with companions that plays out one way if they like you, or another way if they're not huge fans. So there's a lot of replay value. I know it's asking a lot, but you know. Anyway, it's a fun adventure. It's like it's I want it to feel like you're going on a road trip with your friends. Indiana Jones style, not globe trotting, but country trotting, and
Mm.
it's 3:10, so I should probably play this.
Yeah, so
So
look, that's the general setup. So this
that is
is
the
you.
general
You are
setup.
able to share this the trailer.
I'm
We did test it. Hopefully it'll work now.
I'm going to share my screen right now, Windows Media Player,
Okay, so here is the trailer.
and I'm going to mute it. So everybody get
Yeah,
ready.
I'm
Oh,
muted as
before
well.
I
So
before I play the trailer, I want to say two things. One is buckle up because it's very fast paced, so it's going to come at you fast, but it'll be available to watch in 5 minutes. Second of all, I want to give a special shout out to Mark Bennis. When I started putting this trailer together, I had pretty much all of the game's music ready, and I was putting in tracks from the game to kind of get the mood. And then 2 days after, he was like, "Hey, I finished that final showdown track." And I said, "Perfect, let's hear it." And as soon as I heard it, I was like, "This is the trailer now." So the music you hear, everything you hear and see in this trailer is in the game, including the amazing music. So this is Rosewater,
okay,
everybody. Enjoy.
Much has been said about the western frontier. The perilous wilderness, the lawless towns, and the tough, hardened folk who make their way out there, usually to get away from something worse.
Why are you here?
We're going to look for Dr. Bennett Clark's missing fortune.
Wasn't he the guy who blew up those people a few years back?
Alas.
Is it not showing?
I
seem to
don't see anything.
Oh no! Oh no! Okay, let's
Oh,
fix
oh,
this.
I see it now.
You do. Oh, okay. Hold on. Sorry, folks. Let's get this going again. Is it supposed to be a black screen? No, it's not
No.
supposed to be a black screen. All right. Hold on. Hold on. We'll fix this. We'll fix this. Don't you worry. I see that. Stop.
There goes that exclusive.
There goes that. No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
No, listen, it's okay. It will be available in 3 minutes everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try that again. Can you see
I can
it
see
there?
something, yeah.
Okay, you can see something there. All right. I'm gonna start it again.
And
Here we go.
yes.
Much has been said about the western frontier. The perilous wilderness, the lawless towns, and the tough, hardened folk who make their way out there, usually to get away from something worse.
Why are you here?
We're going to look for Dr. Bennett Clark's missing fortune.
Wasn't he the guy who blew up those people a few years back?
Alas, we all make mistakes.
My companions and I set out from Rosewater, encountering bandits, rebels, visionaries, eccentrics, and many more friends and foes.
This was meant to be a simple job.
This quest has run us afoul of some very dangerous people.
I imagined it would be a dangerous undertaking.
Quite the understatement.
Well, damn. Jake!
Woo! Well,
So
we
there you
got
go.
there.
There you go. We got there in the end.
Oh man, I got
Now we
goosebumps
have-
after that.
Oh, thank you. I got goosebumps too when I heard it for the first time. That's some great music, right?
Oh, fantastic! Congrats to Mark. The music is absolutely phenomenal there. And yes,
got
we've
it.
got a specific release date. In case
We
people
do.
missed it, it's March 27th. So we were all wrong with our predictions on Discord and our WhatsApp group, I think. We can't even remember when I said April 1st. I was close. I was close.
You were close. You were close.
I
I don't
thought
think I
you-
quite. I don't think I have quite the gravitas of Ron Gilbert to be able to pull off an April
I-
Fool's.
I
thing.
thought you were going to out Ron Gilbert, Ron Gilbert.
Unfortunately, I didn't. I no, but yes.
Oh, but
So,
no,
yeah.
but the trailer looks absolutely fantastic. And we do have finally a specific release date, March 27th, 2020. 5. Yeah, what year are we in? Yes,
Yeah,
2025.
2025. All
So
right, if you'll
we
excuse me, I'm
can.
going to publish everything now to the public.
Well, if again in the chat now that we've all watched the trailer, if anybody has questions for Francisco, please put them in the chat. Because he's here now, and you can ask
Hi.
him. And we can. Oh yes, an Adventure Game Geek. I saw one of your videos. He's putting March 27th in the wall calendar. Adventure Game Geek. By the way, I mean, I'm sure you do follow him, but if you don't, check his videos out. He has a big calendar on the wall just for adventure games where he puts the dates of adventure
Right.
games. And I'm
He
going to copy
does.
that idea. And steal that idea, but I do want to give credit where credit is deserved. So, okay, so now March 27th.
March 27th. That is exactly 2 months to the day today.
Fantastic. So I better finish these other games that I'm playing. One of the games I'm playing is Discworld on the PlayStation 2. I better
Oh, fun.
see if I can finish that. But well, one question that I wanted to ask you, Francisco, because we are speaking, that it's saying that this is a lot of people's number one most anticipated game. And how do you feel now with this expectation? Does it go through your
Uh,
mind when you're making the game, or does it make it better or worse, or does it affect it at all, the
I try not to,
development?
I try not to think about it because, my focus is just trying to make the best game I can with what I can do at any given time. So, yeah, I just I try not to think about it because I'll
Yeah.
drive myself crazy otherwise. Speaking of driving myself crazy, Twitter doesn't seem to have posted my
Oh,
tweet. Oh, here we go. Why do I have here's my scheduled posts. Monday, Jan. Oh, I scheduled it for 3:30 on Twitter. So let's just go
oh.
ahead and I scheduled it for 3:15 on YouTube. Um,
Okay, so it's going
but
ahead on
that's okay.
YouTube first.
Well,
Well,
it's fine.
all the cool people are on YouTube, Blue Sky,
It's on Blue
Instagram,
Sky
anyway.
right now, yeah, so it's all good.
Well, so
And I
okay, so
just
you
published
you,
my
you
story
don't
page on
think
Steam
about
as
it.
well. So if you go on Steam now,
You
it
can have a
says
full look at the trailer.
yes, and you
Well,
can go on YouTube as well.
there are a few questions coming in there, actually. I had a couple of questions that are, I think, the same from Sarah Rupert, who I believe it, no, Sophie Raven,
Mm.
apologies. Sophie asked, does the date have any significance? And Adventure Game Geek also asked, my question is, why March 27th? I know you mentioned that in the background or something, but is there any significance to the date?
There is no significance to the date. I guess I can give you full disclosure. I had originally scheduled it for March 13th, and I found out literally this morning that the Steam Spring Sale starts on March 13th. And so I was like, I need a new release date. So I pushed it back because March 20th is during GDC and also Assassin's Creed Shadows comes out that day. So
Oh,
March 27th was the next available. And you know what? 2 extra weeks to polish things up never hurts. So, yes.
how much do you bet that GTA 6 will be released? No, no, not going to.
It's not going to be. It's
I
Rockstar
mean,
doesn't do shadow drops. I don't think.
no. Well, look, I'll still be playing Rosewater before GTA anyway. Uh,
Well, I appreciate that,
so,
but
but no, thank you, Guy, for the questions. Mark has a question.
oh,
He's a question here. How do you choose what clips to use in the trailer? What voiceover to use? How does that editing workflow look like?
so that's interesting, actually. Yeah. So basically, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. My original idea for this trailer was actually to do like a tongue-in-cheek, sort of like, when's it going to be finished? Because I actually do have some lines in the game that were conducive to that. But then I was like, no, you know what? I want it to be. I, I want it to be like a victory lap trailer, as it were, because like the first teaser was just like, here's what I'm working on. The second trailer was, like explaining the story. And this is the trailer where I was like, okay, the game's almost finished. I have a lot of the animations done. I just want to show off like all the animations. So that was basically my thinking. I was like, let me just think of all the cool scenes I can do. And then, like I said, I started putting in music tracks, and then I was like, okay, well, there's narration in the story, so like we can build a little story about like Harley talking about what she's doing. Um, so yeah, it kind of just came up naturally as when I got the music, I was like, okay, so Actually, funnily enough, at Adventure X a couple of years ago, someone named Gary J. Kings gave a great talk about how to make game trailers. And one of the hardest things in an adventure game trailer is to like show footage that isn't just random people walking. So, luckily Rosewater is pretty cinematic, so I had stuff to choose from. But then I was like, okay, so I want to structure this in 3 acts. I want to be like, the setting, what it is, and then the ramp up. So it was like, okay, so this is easy enough to do because the showdown track he sent me was in 3 parts. So I was like, all right, part one, I just want to do like, what is this about? So, talk about the setting, the wilderness, the stuff. I have something to show for each of those things. And then, like, the little hint about the inciting incident with, wasn't he the guy that blew those people up? Okay. And then this is what we encountered, and then just show it all. Well, not even actually, because you've only seen like 25% of the game in this trailer.
It didn't seem like there were any spoilers in the game. I haven't played it, but it
Well,
didn't like.
that's the other beautiful thing is like, as the developer and exactly like what the game is, you can be real precious about like, I can't show that. I can't show that. There's actually a lot of spoilers in the trailer, but without context, they're not
Exactly.
spoilers. So, yeah.
Like I didn't get a sense like, oh, so that's the big twist or that's the
Right.
reveal, that's the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
if anything, is maybe even more excited. So,
Oh, good. Yeah, that's the thing. You want
I've
you
heard,
want to leave people asking questions and you want them to feel excited. So that was the other thing I wanted to do. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So, no, but yeah, no, fantastic. Now, Hank Works asks, any tips for not losing your mind working on the same thing for 6 years? So that could be for other game developers or for anybody else working on the same thing. How did you keep yourself going for
Well,
6 years through a pandemic, through all of these things that happened, and now we're finally getting there to release.
me personally, I like to, because I do pretty much everything, I like to be able to have the ability to bounce around between disciplines. So, if I'm having a week where I'm drawing backgrounds and I get tired of drawing backgrounds, I just move on to designing or writing or whatever. The other thing is it helps to have talented people helping you out. Like Mark, every time I would get a new piece of music, I would just put it in and be like, this is so good. Same when it comes time to do the voice acting. You just have to keep at it because, yeah, it can drive you crazy, but ultimately i- if it works, whatever works for you, you just have to be disciplined and not let yourself get burned out, basically.
Yeah, well, as I said, and I said this at Adventure X on the panel, and I do mean it, that I do think if you actually release the game, if you finish the game development, that itself is an achievement. However the
Yeah.
game turns out, because from what I've speaking to many developers like yourself, it seems to be really, really hard. And you mentioned burnout, which is a possibility. So the very fact that now you can release it, I think that itself is an achievement. Now you've released many games already, but we're nearly there now. Johnny Nice, well, actually, Sarah Rupert said, "I love a game where choices matter." I can see how that would be a huge undertaking, though. So kudos to you,
It is,
Grundy.
yeah. Thank you.
So we could talk about that now. But Johnny Nice, as I called the nicest guy in the adventure game community, also part of the Adventure Game podcast. He says, "Question to Francisco: have you read Stephen King's Dark Tower series? Because I think you'd make an amazing adventure game out of it. Looking at this trailer."
Interesting. I have not read it actually. I've read very little Stephen King. I've only read The Shining, uh, and I think that's it. I've only read The Shining, but yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That kind of broaches the subject of like adapting things into an adventure game, which
What do you think could be adapted, or would you like to? So go following on from that question. Is there anything at all that you would like to adapt into an
I would
adventure or narrative game?
I would love to
That you
do a
pick?
Venture Brothers adventure game.
What's
The Adult Swim cartoon, The Venture Brothers. It's been a while since it's been on the air, but I would love to do an adventure game based on that. But aside from that, I don't really want to adapt anything.
okay? Okay, so there's nothing at all. And well, very quick,
Not
anything
really.
about the Adventure Brothers that you would love to adapt?
Well, the Venture Brothers is just like it's sort of like it started off as a parody of like the old '60s Johnny Quest cartoons, and immediately went into its own thing. But just the style of it, and I don't know, it feels like it would make a fun comedy point and click. I've never done like a true comedy point and click, so if I did, it would probably, and I had to adapt something, I would do that. But yeah, just the general broader question of adapting things. I don't. It's too much. It's too much expectation, you know.
Yeah, well,
So,
look, as we mentioned, there's high expectation for this game.
yeah.
But yeah, no, that thank you, Johnny. Sarah Rupert asks, game length, if question mark, if that was mentioned already, apologies. So do you know how long more or less the game would be? Probably in the first playthrough, because you mentioned
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it does have replayability. I would guess that it's a little longer than Lamplight City. People seemed to be able to do Lamplight City in about like 8 to 10 hours. I would say this one is maybe more like 10 to 12 hours. The testers who have been going through it and haven't played it usually take about 3 days to get through it. So I'm I'm thinking maybe, if they're playing like 5 hours a day, that's maybe like 15 hours. So your mileage may vary, but it's not a short game. That's definitely true. I mean, there's always going to be someone who's going to say, "Oh, it was too short," but people go at different.
it's not
paces.
100 hours. You know,
No.
like open
The-
world going around 100 hours or 300 hours. Oh my God.
No, the good thing about it though is that it's structured in such a way that there are a lot of like natural stopping points. So if you're the type of person that can only get in a few minutes or a couple of hours a day doing it, there's a lot of places where you can just pause and come back and hopefully come back to it. So yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, Sarah says, "Whoa, impressive length. That means 47 hours for me."
Oh well, there you go. There you go. Your mileage may vary, as they say.
Sure. And now Johnny asked, "Well, this is the man after my own heart." He said, "The question about Rosewater: does it have manual saves?"
Okay, so I have to say I don't understand why this is even an issue, because I kind of assumed that manual saves was industry standard, although apparently
I
I'm
thought,
wrong.
yeah, I
But
thought it would be,
yes,
but a lot of
yes, it
games that I
does.
play don't have manual saves.
Well, it does have manual
Oh,
saves.
Perfect.
It
well,
also has 2 autosave slots. It has one autosave slot that saves like anytime you quit the game or you enter a new room, and it has another autosave slot for like important parts in the story, just to, not make you have to backtrack if something happens. But it also has manual saves. Yes.
Perfect. And this
So-
is a game where you have choices. I mean, I'm guessing that developers I mean, if it's not, I don't know, if it's a technical issue for them based on the game engine that they use, but if it's a choice, and by the way, I think it's a terrible choice because, yeah, anyway, if anyone listened to the Adventure Games podcast, you've probably heard me go on about this. And yes, Matt Lato said, the AGP drinking game, take a shot when Shorta asks about manual saves. Yes, I know. But yeah, I guess developers might be concerned about save scumming. That before you make a choice, will play. Are you worried the players might just save? I don't like the choice, just go back, and they won't. Is that something that you're concerned about at all as a game developer of this choice-based game?
As a game developer and as somebody who wants you to experience the story, I guess I could say yes. But honestly, you play the game however you want. As long as you're having fun and you're enjoying it, then play it however you want. I don't care.
And this is why
I
one of my
talked about-
favorite people.
Oh, thank you. I actually talked about this a little bit in my talk about the talk I gave at Adventure X about modifying your design and stuff so you don't say no. I gave an example of a puzzle late in the game where you have to do a whole deduction thing to figure out the correct room to get into. And I realized that it was entirely possible to just brute force your way into every single door and not do the puzzle. And I was trying to figure out how to make it so that the player had to do some work to get in, until I finally realized, you know what, if you want to brute force it, go right ahead. There's nothing that says that you have to do it my way. I'd like it if you did it the ideal way, but if you want to play it your way, play it your way, So, yeah.
No, well, Again, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, game of the year already. Manual saves included. That
There's
goes
some
from,
stiff competition this year. Let's not
yeah, it's
count
going
our
to be a
chickens.
pretty good year.
Yeah.
Well, Matt Latham asks, was it always meant to share the Lamplight City universe, or did that happen after you'd started development?
No, it always was. It always was. In fact, I came up with the idea midway through developing Lamplight City. There's a few little clues that are dumped at the beginning in Lamplight City when you're playing. Your partner Bill says about how he wants to visit his sister Harley out west. Um, so yeah, I knew I wanted to expand the universe and I wanted to explore what the Old West looked like in this universe. So yes.
Yes, well, oh, thank you. So this is the Lamplight City not multiverse, but
It's the World of Vespuccia. That's the franchise name on Steam. So that's what I'm
fantastic.
officially calling it. Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, look, keep the questions coming if you guys have any more questions. But I just wanted to read out from SRVR 1007 server says, been so excited for this game. Really enjoyed your previous work. Was really happy to see you use union voice actors as well. Yes, because a couple of years ago
Yes.
we also kind of revealed on this podcast the actors, which was basically me just going, oh wow, like after every voice actor is like, oh, there's no way you can top that or even match that. And yeah, you did. Did you want to talk about some of the actors you've worked with, some you've worked with previously, others are completely new, but they're very well known. And I guess my question then is, what is it like working with them? Because a lot of them have done some fantastic work over the years in
Yeah.
adventure games and otherwise.
It was much
Um,
like this because we recorded it entirely over Zoom. So it was me sitting here in my basement with my headphones on, looking at them on the little window, thinking, "Oh my God, that's so and so," and trying to hide it as best as possible. Yeah, because when we recorded that, when we did the announcement, we had just cast the game. We hadn't actually started recording it yet.
mm,
So yeah, the very first person that we recorded with on October 16th, 2022, don't ask me how I remember that date, but somehow I do, was Roger Clark, who you may know as Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2. Sweetest guy. Like, everybody was really nice. Like, I shouldn't have to say this because everyone was really nice. But yeah, he was great. He was in his booth, we knocked out his parts. He plays three parts. We got it done in like less than 2 hours. He went off to his convention that he was on his way to talk to people about Red Dead. And yeah, everybody I worked with was great. Like it was really interesting too because normally in the past, my usual method is the actor will like if it's dial which for most NPCs it's always dialogue. And I say this as opposed to like the main character because you'll have dialogue and then you have if the main character is the narrator, you have like pages and pages that are just like object descriptions. And those can get a little boring because you just go through those. But usually if there's a dialogue, I'll have the actor read their part. Or in this case, my partner Jess, who was helping me direct, will read the other character's part. So it feels more natural, like you're talking to each other. Normally we do it one read through and then we'll do a second take just to have a second take. There were so many actors who got it like immediately in one. It was great. It was great to see. Gavin Hammond, who plays Kenny in The Walking Dead and Telltale's The Walking Dead, he plays Gentleman Jake. He got through, I want to say, 700 and something lines of dialogue in 2 hours. That was like amazing. That was our record, I think. He was that good. Like he was just like bam, 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 and every single line, it was like he nailed it in one take. Leilani Jones Wilmore, who you might know as the Voodoo Lady and Carla from Monkey Island, she also was like just one take wonder. She was great. Um, but yeah, everybody. It was really interesting working with everybody. Like I said, yeah, there was a few people who I wasn't familiar with, who I just had listened to their demo reels, and I thought they were really good. Um, all of the companions are fantastic. I'm really happy with how they all turned out. Like, yeah, it was just really fun to work with everybody, and it took me 2.5 years to edit all the voiceover because we had 15,000 lines of dialogue. I wasn't doing it like entirely, in one block. I would do it off and on, but it was a lot. It was a lot to get through. So
Wow.
yeah,
It's almost like, you worked with great actors that could,
I know,
do it in
right?
one go. That
But even still, imagine if it had been like 2 or 3 takes, it would have taken me even longer because there's this weird like liminal space thing where like a 2 hour audio file somehow takes about 6 to 8 hours to edit. So
hmm
yeah,
Yeah, well, I know from the podcast, if it's 1 or 2 hours, it can take even double, at least double,
yeah,
to edit. But yeah, well, look, thank you for that. Now, yeah, Yanis asks, hello, Yanis.
hello,
We met at
Yanis.
Reboot and Adventure X. Now he asks, question for Francisco, what's next?
Leave
A
me
long
alone.
break,
Yes, a vacation, a
a long
well-earned
holiday in
vacation.
the wild. Would you like to visit the Wild West in the United States if you
I've
haven't
been.
already?
I
Oh, have you
have
been
been.
for
Yeah, I have
research?
been. No, just I mean, well, I mean, it certainly didn't hurt. I have had this sort of weird hankering, even though I've only been once and I didn't really enjoy my time, but I would love to go back to Los Angeles, even though now is not the best
Well,
time to
yeah.
go. But
Mm.
I kind of want to go there. Also, because selfishly, I kind of want to just like meet up with some of the actors who live out there and be like, "Hey, let's go get a
Mm.
beer or something," even whatever. But
Yeah.
no, I have my partner's family has family that live in like the middle of Nevada, and we went out there one time in the middle of their little homestead in between in a valley, and it was just like pure Old West. So, but no, I don't know. I just want to go someplace where I can not think about game development. Although, of course, I will say, yes, I already know what I'm doing next. But I learned
Oh.
my lesson. I've learned my lesson from this game, and I'm not going to talk about it, and I'm not going to announce it until it's at least halfway finished, because
Okay.
that snake's not going to bite me on the ass again.
So we can't get well. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Look, this has. Do you think it'll take you 6 years to make the next game? Will it
I
be
am
as
purposely
big as?
making the next game linear and smaller, because I do not have another 6 year development cycle in me right away. If I do it again, I have to at least take one game or whatever break in between.
Well, look, you deserve a break. I think once this game
Thank you.
comes out, I've been
Thank you.
working hard for 6 years.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Yanis. Now, Johnny asks again, while testing games, I often find the subtitles no longer match the voiceovers when he's playing games. Have you watched out for that in Rosewater?
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, generally speaking, I don't export the script until the text is locked so that we can make sure that the text matches the script. But every now and then, something changes. Obviously, I've been asking the beta testers to be on the lookout for if I make a mistake. Like, it happens, I'm only human. I'm sitting here numbering lines. Sometimes I'll mix up two numbers, I just found a line the other day that someone was like, this text doesn't match the voice. And I was like, oh, it's because it's line 67 instead of 76. And so I had to fix that. But yeah, no, I definitely, that's definitely one of the quality assurance issues. I mean, I'm not super nitpicky. Like,
Mm.
if it's, if the character says we're gonna go and the text says we're going to go, I'm not necessarily going to change it. Like in Rosewater, I have done for some characters, like if they speak in a colloquial way, like I'll put, in apostrophe instead of ing or whatever. But if it's something like, I wanna or I'm gonna and the text says going to or I want to, I'm not super careful about that. Although we did, here's a little behind the scenes again with Roger Clark, and you'll appreciate this, I'm sure, being Irish, Shorsha.
I was going to ask you
Um,
about, is there any Irish slang?
there is no Irish slang, but
Or
the character that Roger Clark plays using his Irish accent is like an old grizzled sea captain, and I sort of wrote him as a sort of like sea captain, like not pirate, but like grizzled, like yay, like saying like instead of saying you, he says yeah, which I should have written as YEH, but I actually wrote it as ye. So we had this whole discussion about like ye, you versus ye, if it's you're addressing you singular or ye plural, and how it works with an Irish accent and stuff. And that was something we had to go back and fix. But yeah, uh, I don't know why I brought that up, but it was just
Yeah,
something
no,
that
is it
happened.
with
It
the
was text
voice
that didn't match.
with the
Right.
yes? Well, I was going to
Yeah.
ask you. I mean, you're very brave to put an Irish character because, as I'm sure you've seen as well, some terrible Irish accent. But I do believe in Roger Clark and yourself as
Well,
uh,
there's another character who you meet at the very beginning named Joan Gallagher, who is also Irish and is played by not an Irish person, but I got the Paul Conway stamp of approval when he played the
okay.
demo at Adventure X, and he said this isn't entirely offensive, so I'm taking that as a win.
Well, there was I haven't seen it, but the latest Star Trek movie, which is not supposed to be very good, but there is
What, the
apparently an
Section
Irish.
31 one?
Yeah,
Oh,
there's an Irish character with a terrible Irish accent, and one reviewer said, "Oh no, but it's not Irish. It's just a planet that has just bad Irish accents." So that's the way you
that's
can get away with that.
it's the planet where they sent everybody who did a bad Irish accent on Earth. They were like, "You get out of here. Go."
But yeah. So look, we'll see with that. Now, Sarah also asks, will there be any dev commentary or bloopers included?
There will be bloopers, definitely. The dev commentary, it depends on how much time I have. If I'm able to record it and get it in the game before release, I'll have it at launch, but I might just end up doing what I did with Lamplight City, which is releasing it as an update after a few months. Because that was also interesting because I got to record commentary talking about post-release and like reactions and stuff. So I'm kind of tempted to do that. And also, selfishly, it's a way to get an updated visibility round if you release an update to your game. So, and if I were to include developer commentary at launch, I would have it so that you can't access it until you beat the game because I don't understand how people play comment. There's people who play.
Spoilers.
I'm sorry if anybody in the chat does this, but there's people who play with the dev commentary on their first playthrough and then they get mad that there's spoilers in it. And it's like, what do you want? Come on.
Yeah.
This is the
Uh,
place to talk about spoilers.
I
So,
mean, it's like, oh my God, an adventure game that has dialogue and that has
I
voice
know.
acting as well. Anyway, no, but I suppose if they didn't know, but
Yeah.
I mean, because I know Dave Gilbert, what did I just,
Mm,
does, and he himself said as well, don't play with the dev commentary until you've played the game through
right.
at least once. So, yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, no,
the
after launch, I'd say, yeah, look, that's, I think that's perfectly suitable.
yeah, the easy
Um,
way to solve that problem is like I said, just hide it behind, unlock bonus features once you've complete a playthrough and the commentary is there. So then you have to play through it to
like an achievement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Yanis again asks, are there going to be any console ports, do you think, in the future?
Probably Switch again. I know that we're working on figuring out a Switch port again, but no other consoles beyond that probably,
That
because
could be because when I first spoke to you way back in 2019, at the time, I don't think it was possible to port games made in AGES Studio, but now it is possible, and
yeah,
obviously.
Lamplight City is out on Switch.
Oh, fantastic.
So
I didn't
yeah,
know.
it came
Uh,
out in 2022, I want to say. So
oh, yes, I think I remember. Yes, yes.
yeah, but that's also
It's
the problem because it's like if you don't launch immediately or close to, nobody cares or pays attention. So,
Would you
whatever.
recommend porting an adventure game to Switch? Because I see this discussion amongst
Hmm.
adventure game developers about whether or not for them it's worth porting a game to Switch.
Yeah,
Um,
it all
so
depends on
yeah,
it all depends because if you're gonna break the bank doing the port, I would say no because honestly, the discoverability on the Nintendo eShop is terrible unless you're really lucky. I mean, I know that there's people cite Thimbleweed Park as having done better on Switch than it did on Steam, but I think that's the outlier. Um, Especially because, it's Ron Gilbert and people see that and they're like, "Oh, an adventure game, Ron Gilbert, okay." Um, so yeah, I mean, if you can get it on Steam and you're not gonna spend tens of thousands of dollars on the port, then maybe consider it. But I mean, I will say this: the Lamplight City Switch port, it cost it was more expensive than the iOS port. I didn't think it was going to make its money back. I didn't think I was going to see any royalties from it, but it recouped in like 2 months. So that was nice. And I'm not saying it's doing amazing. Like it brings in a couple of extra $100 a month. It's not nothing, but it's also not enough to sustain development if you're planning on doing that. But anyway, but again, your mileage may vary, so
Sure. Well, actually, going back to playing games with dev commentary, apparently Sarah Rupert said, I do that, but I don't
okay.
get mad. And I'm sorry if I wasn't making fun of you, but yeah, but look, if you enjoy the game, sure, but at least she doesn't get mad.
That's true. Yes. That is true.
And Johnny says, I know a guy who only plays adventure games on Switch, so he'll be happy.
Well, okay.
So yeah, Hank Works asks, do you have any do's and don'ts for voice direction? Any unique issues or suggestions for working with union voiceovers? Now you can check our previous video as well on that if you're interested for even more. But yeah, so Francisco, do you have any suggestions, any do's and don'ts in general for voice direction or suggestions with union?
I'll do the second one first. So with union voice actors, obviously the biggest difference between non-union in the casting and actual housekeeping version is that, or process, I should say, is that there's obviously a lot more paperwork. It's a lot more rigid. You have to, there's a specific contract with specific rates. You have to get their information, you have to get their tax information, you have to use a payroll, well, you don't have to, but it's strongly recommended that you use a payroll company because they are actually, this is not going to make sense to anybody outside the United States, but they are W-2 employees, which means that they are considered employees as opposed to 1099 forms, which is what you fill out when you're a freelancer, like I have to do, or a contract employee. So basically, you have to deal with all of the U.S. tax nonsense, unless you use a payroll company, in which case they use it. But as far as the process itself, it's pretty much the same. General good practices of working with voice actors is, giving them breaks after a certain amount of time, asking how they're doing, if they need to take a break. You don't want to push them too much, especially if it's like high demand shouting, which you don't get much in adventure games. It's not like Call of Duty where they're all screaming war cries and things like that. And even if you do have stuff like that, generally you leave that to the end of the session. But yeah, do is just kind of like, I encourage them to show up like 10 minutes early so we can just chat and get to know each other a little bit so we're comfortable working with each other. Everyone's very friendly, they know what they're doing, they're very professional. The biggest don't is don't do line reads, which means that if a voice actor is just not getting, only in like extreme circumstances, right? Like if the voice actor just isn't hitting the line the way that you envision it, give them a few chances, explain what the context of the line is. Only read the line yourself if they're just not getting it. Like in any other way, do not read the line at all. Like, don't do a line read because that's just insulting. That's saying I can do it better than you, which is not what you want to do. There's that infamous clip of William Shatner in the booth, and the guy's like, maybe you should do it this way, and he reads it, and then to make fun of him, he reads it like making fun of how he's doing it in a monotone, and he's like, oh no, I didn't mean that. He's like, well, I'm doing it the way you wanted me to. So, and I mean, William Shatner's an outlier because it's William Shatner. He has a bit of an ego, we might say. But anyway, but yeah, don't ever do line reads unless, and if you were going to, ask permission first. Just say like, could I maybe like tell you how I'm thinking about it? Not like, I'm going to do it this way and this is how you have to do it. Just, I've had to do, I think in the entirety of Rosewater, I had to do maybe like 2 line reads maybe with the main character, and I only did it because we're friends in life as well, so I knew that she wouldn't get upset if I asked her. So tread carefully with that. So that's my biggest don't.
Fantastic, thank you. By the way,
Yes.
Johnny Nice says that he's got to go, but he does
Oh.
say he did mention that he's playing through Conquest of the
Oh.
Longbow, and I
Excellent.
mentioned to him that that was one of your favorite games. Is that correct?
Yes, and it was
Or-
actually a big inspiration for Rosewater
Oh wow,
with regards to like the multiple solutions and the different like ways to get through it. Yeah.
I need to play
So,
it. Well, Johnny
oh, it's
started
great. You
playing those,
should.
and he's writing a blog, so he's curious to know your thoughts on the blog as well. I'll send you the link
Okay.
if you're interested. I have a question now. Again, if anybody's more questions, Hankwork says thanks for the helpful answers about the gameplay, which you have mentioned that it's
Yes.
about there's choice, but that's one of the reasons it took so long because it's
Yeah.
replayability. Was
Yeah.
this always the plan? Like when you first started, was it? Or had you planned on making it relatively linear like your previous games, or did you decide then to make it choice based during development or
I I happen to have my design document on my desk right here because I'm old school and I write down all of my stuff
on paper?
on paper, and I will show you here that you can see here basic game structure. See that? There was branching from the beginning. So,
So
and you
this
can
was
see
the
I cut this whole bit because it was going to branch even more at the end, and I was like, okay, no, that's too much. So,
okay. So my next
actually,
question is
yeah.
why?
Why?
Yeah, was this
Because I
always
just
something you wanted to do?
Yeah, I wanted to challenge myself. I like to try new things with every game, you know? And Lamplight City had the choices, but Lamplight City, I think the problem was that I cut content, like I locked people out of content, and people don't like that, which I learned. So I wanted to try doing it again in a way where it wasn't locking you out of content, it was just taking you in an alternate direction and giving you incentive to come back and try something. Not make you feel like, "Oh, I went this way instead of that way." Not I
Mm.
went this way and I can never go this way, you know? Um, so yeah. Uh, and as I said, my next game is going to be linear because of that. Because I want to go back and try something else, but in a linear scene. Yes, that cut section would have put us into 2028 if I had kept it. Because and I can say this because it was cut. There was a turning point at the end of Act 2, and you were then going to be able to decide how you wanted the story to progress. If you wanted it to be like, I'm going to continue searching for the treasure, or I'm going to go after this person who has wronged us, or I'm going to do something completely different. And it would have been three completely different branches. So, yeah, that's why I cut
It
that.
yeah, no, so we'll be here on the
We
2028.
would have been here until 20, probably would have been here till 2038, honestly.
Was there anything? Well, I'm glad that you cut that then, if that's the case.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
is there anything particular that you and yeah, no, I'll ask Sarah's question after. But is there anything particular that you learned while because this is your first time you mentioned? I mean, we've all had the plenty of games now that there are like Telltale games. But you said that for example, you wanted the choices to matter. So, did you learn anything? Did you learn anything while developing the game
With regards
about?
to the choices,
Yeah, with regard to the choices, with regards, was there anything that stood out? Any challenges? I
um,
guess
I don't know if there were any challenges, but I
in
did learn
particular.
one thing that I did learn that I've talked about, and I don't know if it was, some people might hear this and think, well, duh, of course. The one thing I learned is the more interactive you make your game, the more people feel like they're making a difference, right? So like even if it's just as simple as like you picked this dialogue option and made a throwaway comment, if you call that back later and you acknowledge that and people are like, "Oh, that thing I picked, actually the game kept track of it and now is acknowledging it." If you do that, people will love your game. So I do that a lot in Rosewater. Um,
Great advice.
and my biggest hope with it, in addition to like people having fun with it and having it feel like you're hanging out with your friends, is that two people will get together and talk about the game and be like, "Oh yeah, that part where this happened," and the other person will be like, "That's not what happened in my game. In my game, this happened." "Oh really? Oh well, yeah." And then people will talk about that and realize, "Oh, this game has a lot more than I thought."
Yeah, no, that's well. I've got to get to Suzerain mentioned there because that's how we were with Suzerain. That I played it and Thomas in the podcast played it, and I don't know if someone else played it, but we all had kind of different, different things that happened in the game.
Right.
Yeah, and there was another game that I played that I'm going to review that I did enjoy it overall, but it's not a choice based game. But it did feel like the developers were really pushing you one direction. For example, there's a romance. You can romance a female character or a male character. It really felt like they wanted to romance a female character because the male character was a dick basically,
Mm-hmm.
and they had no chemistry. Whereas you had to spend a lot of time trying to find out more about the female character, and your character was nervous before asking her out. And it felt, so, I suppose my question is, how do you go about as a developer not doing that? How do you go about making every decision count? Like, or did you find yourself with any choices that you wanted the player to make? Or
Uh,
I don't know if that's
y
a good question.
no, I think yeah. Mm, yeah, that's tricky because I think I fell into that pitfall in Lamplight City because if you play Lamplight City, you'll notice that like only the only puzzles in that game are on the correct paths of the
Mm,
cases because I didn't want to be like, well, I don't want to waste time making a puzzle for a path that's wrong, which was not a great attitude because each thing should be equal, right? You're in doing that, you're already setting yourself up the challenge where you want each path to be just as satisfying as the other one. Um, there is one section where I did want the player to do one thing over another, and I ended up my solution to that was just like cut the other option. But I feel justified in doing it because it's not a spoiler to say that you saw it in the trailer. There's a climactic scene where the gang is involved in a shootout. And there were two ways to get through it. You could either work together with your companions to figure out how to get through it, the more puzzly way, or you could borrow one of your companions' guns and try shooting the guys. And it was hard. I mean, it's also hard to balance that in an adventure game.
mm,
It was purposefully hard so that, you could only finish it if you were good at twitch timing shooting. And so like so that those were the two options of how to get through that scene. And I realized that I didn't like that because one, it's the only time. First of all, we've never established that Harley's good with a gun. There's a little shooting mini game towards the beginning that you can play, and it's also hard, but it's not like high stakes. It's just beating somebody at shooting. And if you can do it, great. And if not, you ask one of your companions to help you, and that's fine. But we've never established that Harley's good enough with a gun to shoot people. Second of all, she's shooting people. She's never actually killed anybody in the game yet. So she's all of a sudden become this yeah, okay, it's in self-defense, but she's now all of a sudden like gunslinger, which is completely out of character. And third of all, if you chose to go through that way, it completely ruined the like working together with your companions thing, which is kind of important because it's, you know, the way the scene plays out, it's important that you care about your characters. So to just take that out completely as an option, I was like, nah, this is the one place I'm going to exercise my right as a developer to say play it how I want you to play it. And so
which
that's
is
how I did
perfectly fair. Yeah, no, rather than making a false choice with maybe or that is clearly obvious that
that.
okay,
Yeah,
the developer really doesn't want you to do this.
right.
So because choices I think should be kind of nearly 50-50 or should
Hmm.
be difficult to make, but yeah, so and hello Cressup. Cressup is in the
Oh,
chat,
hello,
Laura
Cressa.
Cressup.
Yes.
Laura Cress. And yeah, then Sarah Rupert again. Thank you, Sarah, for all the questions. What is the question? Yeah, will there be a good ending slash bad ending or any different endings in the game?
No, the ending is the same, uh, but the fates of your companions obviously changes.
Ooh.
And um, so yeah, that's basically the there is yeah. Mark knows because so there's it's not a spoiler to say that there's a big Western showdown as the climactic scene of the game. How that scene plays out depends a lot. I feel like one of them is more satisfying than the other ones. They're both they're both equally interesting, but I personally, from a narrative standpoint, feel like one of them is more satisfying than the others. Obviously, the one that's more satisfying is the good one. Um, but it can work out either way. But yeah, so the ending as far as itself, the ending itself is the same, but the variety is, yeah, like what happened to all your companions and, whatever. But Harley's story always ends the same way.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah. Yanis has two questions. His first question is new things which, well, VR confirmed. Yeah,
No,
VR.
no VR, no DLC.
No
No,
VR DLC.
no, sorry.
Oh, but okay.
It's outside my wheelhouse.
Well, he also asked, do you think you would ever do a game not in AGS?
If someone else was programming it, maybe.
Would you ever be tempted to work with other people? I know you've been, solo dev, but would you ever be tempted to work, as you mentioned, with someone else who programs? You want
Yeah.
to just write the story or the dialogue or the
I
puzzle?
mean, I have Shardlight. I worked with Ben Chandler. He did the art and I did the writing and design and everything. So I have done it before. I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again. I guess I would need to find the right project.
Interesting. And yeah, well, look, we are coming up to the hour if we're not there.
Yes,
So if
we are.
anybody has any final questions, feel free to put them in now or forever hold your silent. I mean, you're also on Blue Sky and Discord and that. But anyway, if you do have questions now to ask Francisco while he's here, please do so. Because I had a question, desperately trying to remember what it was. Yeah,
Is it when will the game be out? Because
when will
that's
the
March
game be out?
27th, 2025. For
27th,
any
10 days
latecomers.
after St. Patrick's Day.
That's right.
Uh, oh, well, Torresno Entertainment, making Legends of Castile, has a couple of questions. He said, how do you cope with multiple paths in the game and not become crazy? Similar to that. And also, would you like to team up to build a group adventure? Or do you prefer? Oh, well, we just asked that, but yeah. But so, how do you again to cope with multiple paths in the game and not become crazy? I imagine a lot of preparation and design, as you showed us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely designing it first, working with flowcharts, figuring out how much possibility I wanted there to be. Actually, I'm thinking about formulating this into a talk somehow, but the one scenario that I mentioned before where Roger Clark plays the captain, um, I wanted it to, so I guess I should say the middle part of the game, which is the one that has the most variety, there's little like short vignettes, little scenes that can be finished in like 10 minutes that are randomly generated. There's six total. You get four in each playthrough. I'm gonna have like a new game plus mode after you beat the game where when you start the game you can choose if you want them to be randomized or if you want to select specific ones so that you can be guaranteed to see them if you missed any on a second playthrough. But anyway, those are randomized and those have like good outcomes and not so good outcomes. Then there's companion specific excursions, which are a little bit longer, and they're little scenes that relate directly to each of the companions. Each companion has two possible ones, and the one you get depends on what your relationship status is with them at that time when it comes up in the course of the journey. Then there's three main scenes, and those scenes are the same. They're always the same ones in each playthrough. Those are longer, those are more substantial, those actually have like puzzle structures and stuff. But those also have positive and not so positive outcomes. So when I was first putting together the one with the sea captain, I actually ran it like a TTRPG. I got some friends together and I assigned them all each of the companion because each of the companions slot nicely into like RPG archetypes. Like you have the ranger, you have the charisma character, you have the rogue, whatever. So I structured it like a tabletop RPG, and I was the DM or the GM or whatever, and I was like, okay, so now you're in this old farmhouse, and here's the captain, and I had them like basically talk about what their characters would do to kind of get the ideas of how the characters would actually react and what they would say and like how to proceed through it. And that's how I prototyped like the multiple paths, which was an interesting way of doing that. But yeah, I didn't want to get too exaggerated. I wanted to basically have like some outcomes, maybe, you know. And again, like, you know, just because it's something that's, let me start that again because my thought was there, but my words were not. I guess in order to avoid having it be like, oh, the player can only do it the way I want them to, like I threw in a few alternate things. Like one of the criticisms of Shardlight was that you always had the crossbow and there was a whole bunch of puzzles that involved just like shooting the crossbow at things. So I was like, okay, well, in this game you have some lockpicks, and there's a lot of locked doors, and you can either use the lockpicks if you have them, but if you don't have the lockpicks, I obviously have to compensate for that. So I made a bunch of other, like, ways to get into doors that are not lockpicks if you don't have them. But I was like, but I have to do these because, you know, I don't want to force the player to have the lockpicks. I'm rambling now, but I think you get the idea.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. No, I think it makes sense. I think that's well. Rojo Aventuras asks, can we die in the game?
No.
No. Well, and following that, Adventure Game Geek asks, is the game of unwinnable states? Because everyone
No.
loves those.
It does not have unwinnable states. It doesn't have purposeful unwinnable states. So that being said, somebody found a bug in Lamplight City like 2 weeks ago that has been in there for the past 6 years, where if you do a certain things in a certain order in case 3, it makes the game unwinnable. And, you know, I've always been harping on about how Lamplight City is a game where you can get stuck, but it has dead ends, but it's not like a Walking Dead unwinnable state. So that made me put my, you know, so I had to update it after 5 years. But no, there are no on purpose unwinnable states. And you know how in Full Throttle you can't die, but at the very end it's a high stakes situation and you can die and it just goes to black and you start again? Well, I have that same thing in Rosewater.
Okay,
So
but you start again.
you can die at the very end, but it just resets the scene and you're okay. So.
Well, Sarah Rupert said, I really appreciate the lack of dead ends, 1,000%. And
I don't know why anyone would do that on purpose.
yeah, I don't know why you do it now.
I mean, the biggest,
especially-
what I was just
but-
talking about before, about the whole thing with, you know, the lockpicks and stuff. As a designer, like, my number one thing is figuring out how not to have dead ends, because then it's like, well, what happened if you didn't get the lockpicks? Oh, well, then now you're screwed 20 hours later. No, I have to figure out
Start from the very beginning again.
Yeah, no. I have
So
to
that's
go
what
out
you
of my
meant when
way.
it's replayable, you said.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
well-
Darkseid.
Oh, God. I don't think I ever finished that game
I never even
for that
started.
reason. Well, Garrett Millward, who I believe is Backseat Designers. I don't know, maybe others, but hello, Garrett. He says,
Professor Gareth Millward. We meet again.
he says, are you an artist? No, I think it's
No, I'm not an artist.
no, absolutely
I'm a
not.
developer.
Developer. It's, we know games are not art, right? Even though they literally
right.
are art. Anyway.
That's right.
But yeah, I suppose you know, my final question then is, and I believe we've spoken about this, is the puzzles in the game. So,
Yes.
because I know it, you know, in your previous games, the puzzles thankfully weren't as difficult as other games, and that's, you know, one of the reasons why I really enjoy your games. But did you make any puzzles that are specific to the Wild West? I mean, we saw in the trailer you could throw a knife someone's leg, which looked like it hurt. I'm pretty sure you can use a gun. So were any puzzles specific to the Wild West in the game? Can you give us any examples?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of specific to the Wild West is.
I suppose, can you use your gun to solve any puzzles? You know, like Indiana Jones.
You don't get a gun, so
That's
no.
right. Yeah.
But I mean, there's definitely, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like the puzzles. I tried my best to make the puzzles relate to the environments or the companions. I mean, I didn't want to have a situation where it was like, you know, use your companions as inventory items. But I don't know, it just, like, I went with Conquest of the Longbow style, like as far as certain instances where there might be an option and your companions present different plans and you can choose who to side with and go that way. But I don't know. What's the most Old West puzzle that's in the game? Yeah, I mean that whole thing where the guy's hanging upside down, like you have to figure out how to get him down, and there's lassoing involved, there's knife throwing involved, there's shooting involved. There's a couple of different ways to solve it. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like I hope that there aren't any crazy puzzles out of left field that people would think, why is this in a Western? So
I'm sure there won't be. I mean,
I'm sure there might be.
Well,
but you never know.
well, yeah, I think that's everything for me. I suppose for me, would you ever, speaking of adapting things, but would you ever be interested in adapting your adventure games into other formats, like a book, like a novel? I know some game devs do that. They write, I mean, the Tex Murphy have been adapted to books, and other examples, I'm sure. Would you ever consider that for Rosewater or your other games, or?
I'm gonna put a pin in that, and I'm gonna tell you that really tickles me that you said that specifically, and you'll understand why at some point in the future. But I don't know if any film producers ever wanted to approach me and like say, hey, we'll do a Netflix series based on Rosewater, like that'd be cool.
Okay,
but
any producers out there?
I wouldn't personally want to take it on myself because I feel like if I wanted to make it something else, I would have just done it as something else. Like I like it as a game.
Yeah.
I'll give that to someone else to do it. So yeah.
Oh, well, look, fantastic.
Sorry for the cop-out answer.
No, it's okay. Curious to know if they're in the near future, if we'll find out something else. But for now, as we saw, the Rosewater will be released. It'll absolutely definitely be released. Yes.
It'll definitely be released on March 27th,
2025.
For PC, Mac and Linux. Switch port, hopefully to follow at some point in the future down the line. I don't think we're going to be doing an iOS port because that market's kind of dried up. But yeah, look for it on Steam and GOG and Humble and other places. And again, thank you so much for having me on. And
thank you.
If you all are excited for it, please help spread the word and go. I've tweeted about it on Twitter, on Blue Sky. Please go and help me out with a retweet and let people know. Because yeah, like I said, it lives and dies on word of mouth, and you can do all the screaming from rooftops in the world, and there's still someone who's going to be like, "Oh, I didn't know this was coming out," or
6 years later.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, Mark Bennett said just a final shout out to Clark Boot.
Yes.
Who recorded live guitar on the trailer. He's a fantastic musician and a great composer in his own right. So there's Clark, and then if you're listening to this later on the podcast, it's ABOUD. And Sarah said, appreciate the interview, cannot wait for Rosewater, being a fan since the Ben Jordan days, like myself.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic games as well. If you haven't played the Ben Jordan games, genuinely they're really enjoyed them. No, I really enjoyed them, and you can play them for free. And they're, if you like Gabriel Knight, Broken Sword, they're very, very good. That's where I first discovered your games. So
we all got to start somewhere.
No, absolutely. So thank you, Francisco. So again, this podcast would not exist without you. Literally, if you had said no back in 2018, I think I would have just like, okay, no. But
oh wow, I would have felt terrible.
That's no pressure. So every time I ask you to do an interview now, it's like, oh look, this podcast will rest on your shoulders. But I'm busy that day.
If I can throw in one last little shout out to Mark.
Absolutely.
Again, it's just a love fest. Speaking of the live instruments, Mark really outdid himself. He did I thought Mark did a fantastic job on Lamplight City. When we started Rosewater, I was like, oh, we should do live instruments. He was like, yeah, we should. He has so outdone himself. And it's great because we got to work with some people who I've known, like some players that I've known but never actually worked with. And the soundtrack is so good. It's so good. I say this about every game, but this one is like really, really, really good. Like you heard it.
Yeah, we just heard at least a little bit of the trailer
and in the show. It's so good.
Yeah, well, I really, really cannot wait to play This game, it looks incredible. I've been following the progress, and as I said, even when you first showed me 2019,
Yeah.
as early as it was back then, I could still see what you're going for, and so delighted to see all the progress that you have made. And yeah, we'll definitely, I'm sure, be talking about this on the podcast. We'll definitely be reviewing it. I
Well,
think it's a game I'm sure all of us will hopefully be playing.
I sure
Um,
hope so.
so
I sure hope so. And if you do, I hope you enjoy it. That's all I can say.
I'm sure we will. So thank you everyone for joining us
Yes, thank you.
and for your questions and yeah, so keep checking the socials. And yeah, for myself, feel free to, we'll hopefully doing more interviews on YouTube. So feel free to subscribe on YouTube and to be notified. And on the podcast, we have audio interviews and reviews as well. So you can feel free to subscribe, and you can see we'll be going to thing this year as well. So thank you. And we will be talking very, very soon. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Francisco.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. I have to go
Bye.
make the game now. Finish the game now.
And that's you again.
Oh.
Thank you. That yeah, look, genuinely, it looks